This is SpaceTime Series 28, Episode 70, for broadcast on the 11th of June 2025. Coming up on SpaceTime, the biggest explosion since the Big Bang. NASA's Perseverance Mars rover takes a bite out of one of the oldest rocks on the Red Planet. And first light for Europe's new killer asteroid hunter. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary.
Astronomers have discovered what they now believe are the most powerful cosmic explosions since the Big Bang. These are blasts so enormous they've been categorized as a new class of event, which are being called extreme nuclear transients, or ENTs. These extraordinary phenomena, recorded in the journal Science Advances, occur when stars at least 3 times more massive than our Sun are quite literally torn apart by supermassive black holes in what are known as gravitational tidal disruption events. Their destruction releases vast amounts of energy visible across enormous distances. The study's lead author, Jason Hinkle from the University of Hawaii, says astronomers have observed stars getting ripped apart in tidal disruption events for over a decade. But these extreme nuclear transients are a very different beast, reaching brightnesses nearly 10 times greater than what are typically seen. Hinkle says not only are extreme nuclear transients far brighter than normal tidal disruption events, but they remain luminous for years, far surpassing the energy output of even the brightest known supernova explosions. He says the immense luminosities and energies of these extreme nuclear transients are truly unprecedented. For example, the most energetic of these so far studied, named Gaia 18 CDJ, emitted an astonishingly 25 times more energy than the most powerful supernovae ever seen. Now, a typical supernova would release as much energy in a year as our Sun will in its entire 12 billion year lifespan. By comparison, extreme nuclear transients are radiating the energy of 100 suns over a single year. Extreme nuclear transients were first uncovered when Hinkle began a systematic search of public transient surveys looking for long-lived flares being emitted from the centres of galaxies. Eventually, he identified 2 unusual flares in data from the European Space Agency's Gaia mission. These flares brightened over timescales far longer than known transients and without the sorts of characteristics common to these events. Now, Hinkle points out that Gaia doesn't tell you what a transient is, just that something has changed in brightness. But when he saw these smooth, long-lived flares from the centres of distant galaxies, he knew he was looking at something unusual. And so that discovery launched a multi-year follow-up campaign trying to figure out exactly what these sources were. Using a number of telescopes, including the giant 10-metre Keck twins in Hawaii, Hinkle and colleagues gathered data across the electromagnetic spectrum. And recently a third event with similar properties to the other 2 was discovered by the Zwicky Transient Facility, further supporting the idea that extreme nuclear transients are a different and new class of extreme astrophysical events. Now, the authors determined that these extraordinary events couldn't be regular supernovae because they release far more energy than any known stellar explosion. The sheer energy budget, combined with their smooth and prolonged light curves, clearly pointed to an alternative mechanism, accretion onto a supermassive black hole. However, extreme nuclear transients differ significantly from normal black hole accretion, which typically shows irregular and unpredictable changes in brightness. The smooth and long-lived flares of extreme nuclear transients indicates a distinct physical process, the gradual accretion of a disrupted star by a supermassive black hole. And now their fortuitous discovery will provide a valuable new tool for studying massive black holes in distant galaxies. See, because they're so bright, astronomers can see them across vast cosmic distances. And of course, in astronomy, looking further away means you're looking further back in space-time. So, by observing these prolonged flares, astronomers will gain new insights into black hole growth from a time when the universe was just half its current age, a time when stars were forming and feeding their supermassive black holes at a rate 10 times more vigorously than what's happening today. But the rarity of extreme nuclear transients, occurring at least 10 million times less frequently than supernovae, makes their detection challenging and dependent on a sustained monitoring of the cosmos. Still, Hinkle says these extreme nuclear transients don't just mark the dramatic end of a massive star's life, they illuminate the very processes responsible for growing the largest black holes in the universe. And that is spectacular. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, NASA's Mars Perseverance Rover takes a bite out of one of the oldest rocks on the Red Planet. And the European Space Agency's newest planetary defender opens its eyes for the first time. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. NASA's Mars Perseverance Rover has taken a bite out of what could be one of the oldest rocks on the Red Planet. The six-wheeled car-sized robotic laboratory is exploring a new area on the Red Planet known as Crocodilen, located on the lower slope of the Jezero Crater Rim. Crocodilen was on the Perseverance science team's wish list because it marks an important boundary between the oldest rocks on Jezero Crater's rim and the rocks of the Martian plains beyond the crater. Perseverance Deputy Project Scientist Ken Farley from Caltech says the last 5 months have been a geologic whirlwind, with Crocodilen promising to be just as compelling as the recent exploration of Witch Hazel Hill. Named by Perseverance mission scientists after a mountain ridge in Fjordland, Norway, Crocodilen is a 30-hectare plateau of rocky outcrops located downslope and to the west and south of Witch Hazel Hill. A quick earlier investigation of the region revealed the presence of clays in ancient bedrock. Now, because clays require liquid water to form, they provide important clues about the environment and habitability of early Mars. The detection of clays elsewhere within the Crocodilen region will thereby reinforce the idea that abundant liquid water was present some time in early Martian history, likely long before Jezero Crater itself was formed by the impact of an asteroid. Now, here on Earth, clay minerals are known for preserving organic compounds, the building blocks of life. Farley says if they find potential biosignatures on Crocodilen, it would most likely have formed from an entirely different and much earlier epoch of Mars evolution than the samples found last year in Cheava Falls, which was the location of a rock sampled back in July 2024, which had chemical signatures and structures which could have been formed by life long ago. The Crocodilen rocks formed long before Jezero Crater was created, during Mars's earliest geologic period known as the Martian, and thereby they're among the oldest rocks known on Mars. Data collected by orbiting NASA spacecraft suggest that the outer edges of Crocodilen may also have areas rich in olivine and carbonate. Now, while olivine forms from magma, carbonate materials, at least here on Earth, typically form during reaction with liquid water, between rocks and dissolved carbon dioxide. And carbonate minerals on Earth are known to be excellent preservers of fossilized ancient microbial life, as well as being good recorders of ancient climate. The Perseverance Rover has just celebrated its 1500th day of surface operations on the Red Planet and is currently analysing a rocky outcrop in Crocodilen called Copper Cove, which may contain Nochian rocks. The rover's arrival at Crocodilen also comes with a new sampling strategy, one that allows for leaving some core samples unsealed just in case the mission finds more scientifically compelling geological features down the road. See, so far, Perseverance has collected and sealed 2 regular samples, 3 witness tubes, and 1 atmospheric sample in the area. It's also collected a further 26 rock cores and sealed 25 of them. The rover's 1 unsealed sample is the most recent, a rock core sample taken on April the 28th that the team have named Bell Island, and which contains small round stones called spherules. Now, if at some point the science team decides that the new sample should take its place, the rover will simply be commanded to remove the tube from its cache and dump the previous content. See, the thing is, there are just 7 empty sample tubes remaining on the rover, and there's lots more Mars yet to explore. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, first light for Europe's new killer asteroid hunter, and later in the science report, a new study has found that global drought severity has increased by an average of 40% since 1981. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. The European Space Agency's newest planetary defender has opened its eyes to the skies for the first time. The FlyEye telescope's first light marks the beginning of a new chapter in how astronomers scan the skies, searching for near-Earth asteroids and comets which could pose a threat to our planet. FlyEye is inspired by the insect's compound eye, designed to capture a region of the sky more than 200 times as large as the full moon in a single exposure, much larger than a conventional telescope. It will use this wide field of view to automatically survey the night skies independent of human operation, and its computer systems will allow it to identify any new asteroids which could pose a threat to Earth. FlyEye project manager Ernesto Derling says a network of up to 4 FlyEye telescopes spread across the northern and southern hemisphere will work together to further improve the speed and completeness of these automatic sky surveys and to reduce the dependence on good weather at any individual site. See, the earlier astronomers can spot potentially hazardous asteroids, the more time they'll have to assess them and, if necessary, prepare a response. ESA's Near-Earth Asteroid Coordination Centre will then verify any potential new asteroid detections made by FlyEye and submit those findings to the Minor Planets Centre, Earth's hub for asteroid observational data. Astronomers will then carry out follow-up observations to further assess the hazard that the object may pose to our planet. FlyEye is equipped with a 1-metre primary mirror, which efficiently captures incoming light. The light's then divided into 16 separate channels, each equipped with a camera capable of detecting very faint objects. It's this which enables simultaneous high-sensitivity operations over a large region of the sky at once. During operations, FlyEye's observation schedule will be optimised to consider factors such as the moon's brightness and the work of other survey telescopes such as the NASA-funded ATLAS project, the Zwicky Transient Facility and the upcoming Vera Rubin telescope. This report from ESA TV.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Brennan-Wessels for ESA Web TV. We join you from Milan, Italy at OHB Italia, where a new high-tech telescope to detect asteroids is being built. Traditional telescopes have a narrow field of view, which makes hunting for threatening asteroids a slow and tedious process. But the FlyEye has 16 individual cameras, mimicking the structure of a fly's compound eye, to offer an extra-wide field of view of 44 square degrees. With this field of view, the telescope will be able to detect asteroids at risk of hitting Earth in as little as a week in advance. So, how does it work? Lorenzo Cibin at OHB Italia gave us an up-close look at the machinery.
The full optical instrument connected to the ground support equipment. Such lower part is the primary mirror. There is a B-shaper that do a repartition of the field in 16 channels. For example, one channel with the camera, CCD camera, and in this CCD project a portion of the sky.
An additional 3 telescopes are foreseen to be produced and placed in complementary locations around the globe to increase coverage and improve the efficiency of the network. This first FlyEye telescope is destined for Mount Mufara on the Italian island of Sicily.
The telescope has to be mounted, has to be associated to an equatorial mount. The equatorial mount is a particular mount that allows to avoid that during the exposure time the stars track, and the stars in this way remain fixed in their position when we take a picture from the telescope.
And while the telescope is taking its pictures, it's important that the structure is very stiff in order to reduce vibrations that could blur the image and thus reduce the capability to detect very faint objects in the night sky.
And in that report from ESA TV, we heard from FlyEye project manager Lorenzo Cibin and senior optical engineer Marco Ciorini, both from OHB Italia. And this is SpaceTime. And time now to take another brief look at some of the other stories making news in science this week with the Science Report. A new study has found that global drought severity has increased by an average of 40% since 1981. The findings, reported in the journal Nature, claims the likely driver is a process called atmospheric evaporative demand. The authors developed a database of global droughts from 1901 to 2022. They found an increasing trend in drought severity around the world, with drier areas becoming drier and wetter areas also experiencing drying trends. Interestingly, they found that the drought trends tend to remain largely flat until 1981. That was the turning point. The findings suggest that atmospheric evaporative demand plays a large role in increasing drought severity, and it's likely to continue under future warming scenarios. A new study has found that men who carry a common genetic variant are twice as likely to develop dementia as women. The findings, reported in the journal Neurology, are based on data from the ASPRI trial, which was investigating people who had variants of the hemochromatosis HFE gene. This gene is critical for regulating iron levels in the body and may also be associated with an increased risk of dementia. The act of yawning is contagious in many mammals. When you see someone yawn, chances are you'll yawn as well. Now, a new study published in the journal Scientific Reports has found that even chimpanzees can also catch yawns, not just from other chimpanzees or people, but even from human-like robots. The study's authors showed 14 chimpanzees a robot that can make human facial expressions, including yawning, and they observed that the chimps would respond in kind. They say 8 of the chimpanzees yawned in response to the robotic yawning, and that the chimps then even laid down in response to the yawn, with some gathering bedding for a rest. The authors say this is likely the first study to show contagious yawning in response to a robot, and it could mean that chimpanzees see yawning as a cue to have a rest. Nintendo have finally launched their long-awaited Switch 2 gaming console. First announced back in January, it's the first major console launch in 5 years. The last was back in 2020 when Sony's PlayStation 5 hit the shelves. With the details, we're joined by technology editor Alex Zaharov-Reutt from TechAdvice.life.
The Nintendo Switch 2, we've been talking about it for quite some time. It's the second generation of Nintendo's ultra-popular handheld gaming machine. I mean, children of the 80s like myself, and many people listening will remember the Game & Watch series from Nintendo with Donkey Kong and Oil Panic and a bunch of other games that were like a very primitive version of the Nintendo 3DS, the games console that flipped open. The Nintendo Switch, now the Switch 2, gives you a giant screen and removable controls. You can connect that screen to a dock to your TV and have a full-on gaming console experience. And of course, from Nintendo, in fierce competition with Microsoft Xbox and Sony's PlayStation 5. So the new model is $699 for the console by itself with the controllers and the dock and charging, and $769 with the Mario Kart World Bundle, which of course is the launch game. I mean, the Game Boy had Tetris, and there's also a Red Bull Tetris. There's a stack of game reviews you can look at online and experiences from different people, but it's the handheld console to beat. And very quickly, there's Windows handheld consoles, there's the Steam Deck, and there's a lot of competition in the space. But Nintendo's been doing this for decades, and this is their best handheld gaming device yet.
That's Alex Zaharov-Reutt from TechAdvice.life. That's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcast, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Acast, Amazon Music, Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favourite podcast download provider, and from spacetimewithstuartgary.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies, or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple-episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to spacetimewithstuartgary.com for full details.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.